This does not even deserve the captain's log introduction, because this is dead serious. The inside and outside tour I did a few months ago of my house, everyone heard it. My mother!
I put out my dragon there, even though I have sisters down inside. Oh boy.
It's my fault! I want everything!
Slam attack.
And this is how angry I am for every waking moment of that EP page is up.
I'm gonna get my mental sanity back! Don't please unblock me!
Look at it!
It's so nice to be reminded of your love and support. Thank you very much. I love you.
Very nice. Very nice. Alright.
Chris Chan, formerly known as Christian Weston Chandler, but now is known as Christine Weston Chandler. They are 39, and they are better known online as CWCville Guardian, or just Chris Chan. They are a YouTuber, a vlogger, an artist, and musician, quote unquote, and they are known for creating the infamous webcomic series Sonichu. Chris originally identified as male, but since 2016, they have identified themselves as a trans woman. There are a lot of clashing sources that say that they identify as a woman because people on 4chan and Reddit convinced them that if they were to identify as a woman, they wouldn't get in any trouble for the actions that they caused. But just to make things easier, I will pronounce Chris Chan as they. Chris's internet career began in 2000 with the uploading of Sonichu comics to a personal website. Chris has become an infamous trolling target due to comics and behaviors, notably one of the most documented people in history. The reasons for the targeting is due to the large amount of controversy surrounding them. I mean, if you are familiar with locales, Chris Chan is known to be one of the originators of that. The stories of Chris and for what they have done in their past is remarkably unsettling to say the least. From the Sonichu fantasy that they have created, the homophobic things that they have said, and strangely enough, they became the very thing that they said that they have hated. Chris is a timid, autistic, self-identified trans woman with delusional tendencies that has been allowed by their parents, Barbara Chandler, and the deceased father, Bob Chandler, to eternally live like a child, amassing toys and video games into a single room in their parents' house. Even as Chris nears their 40s, they remain so comfortable in their protected existence that they refuse to conform to the norms of society, despite their need for independence becoming dire as their mother's health fails. Chris regularly demonstrates having trouble with acceptable public behavior, recognizing when they need to use the washroom, and using their time to contribute to society in any meaningful way. Although the public school system has forced them to face reality, graduation has allowed Chris to stay indoors and avoid taking part in typical civilian activities, opting instead to stick to the comfort of living at home and off of their taxpayer dollars. Due to this avoidance of the outside world, Chris hasn't held a steady job since 2001, minus the commissions and the multi-level marketing. And they haven't even been employed for more than a few months in their whole life. It is likely that Chris will never get a job again, thanks to Patreon, which is the tugboat for begging generous donations, and the fact that they have flat out said that their autism prevents them from getting a job, in spite of there being many social services available to help people with disabilities find work. Chris, shockingly enough, has had few meaningful relationships with people in a social setting outside of their parents, although they do manage to make friends with people who share their interests in LGBT culture, frighteningly enough. Even so, there is so much to unravel from this individual that you could write a whole book on it. and there would even be sequels with the amount of controversies this person has caused. And believe you and me, it's enough to question anyone's sanity. Today, we shall cover a summary with a lot of the sources from various articles, and even YouTubers like Gino Samuel, who is the one who made the hilariously deep saga and basically life story of the one and only Kristen Chandler, the one many knows as the original locale. And we will even be covering more of the recent disturbing article that has came up about what happened to them and what they did to their mother. However, even with that incident being in mind, there too is another puppet master at work for that incident, and she is definitely no saint, nor is she good by any means. But let us continue, shall we? Thank you all for watching. Make sure you leave a subscribe, leave a like, and I hope you enjoy this video. Buckle up, everybody. We are in for a long video. In the beginning, Christopher Weston Chandler was born on February 24th, 1982, at Martha Jefferson Hospital in Charlottesville, Virginia. Their parents, Robert and Barbara, worked as engineers and office workers at Western Electric and Virginia Power, respectively. Although little is known about Chris's toddler years, the disability papers revealed that they were delayed in their language ability, which became their first sign of autism. Chris claimed that their first word was monkey, and it was spoken at 6 weeks old. They remained proud of this feat into their 30s, regardless of how obviously unlikely and physically impossible for this to be true. The language centers in the human brain literally cannot grasp English at 6 weeks old, disregarding infantile vocal cords. They've also had an abusive babysitter who was alone with Christopher every day for years, allegedly locking them in a toy room at an early age after turning all the lights off, an event that they described as being intensely traumatic for them. And Chris apparently misses the irony in the fact that they now regularly lock themselves in a room, surrounded by toys. They once identified this confinement as the source of their autism, which is wishful thinking on Chris's part, considering that autism is a genetic condition that isn't activated by external events. Between the ages of 1 and 7, Chris did not speak at all, and they had to visit James Madison University for speech therapy. They were diagnosed with high-functioning autism, and with the doctor projecting, at least according to Chris, that they would never make it to high school, much less be able to write their own name. However, Chris was able to meet those cognitive milestones in time. During the 1980s, Christopher was playmates with Sarah Nicole Hammer, and then one day, she convinced them that Casper the Friendly Ghost lived in the crawlspace under her house. And when they crawled in there to look, she locked them in, beginning Chris's lifelong career of getting trolled. Apparently, they don't hold any hard feelings over it, possibly just because she's a girl. If a guy did that to them, Chris would vow vengeance. In 1992, there was an animatronic, Leonard Bearstein, that misheard Christopher's first name and called them Christian, which inexplicably convinced Christopher to later have their name legally changed. Chris spent the 1990 through 1991 school year in the 4th grade at Nathaniel Green Elementary School, until his parents pulled him out of classes over a mysterious dispute. Chris claims that they were forcefully restrained by the school's facility, and that he was made to sit on the lap of the principal, an experience that supposedly inspired his homophobia. It's possible that Chris's opinions about these events are colored more by their parents' attitudes than their own memories. The issue went to court, with Greene County seeking to have Chris sent to a special school, which Bob and Barbara likely interpreted to mean a nut house. Chris was homeschooled through the 5th grade during these proceedings. When their family exhausted all legal recourse, Chris and their father relocated to Richmond so that Chris could continue their education in a different school system. starting with the 6th grade in fall 1992. At age 11, Chris entered and won the Sonic the Hedgehog Watch and Win sweepstakes. On their 12th birthday, they enjoyed a $1,000 shopping spree as their prize. WVIR-TV's coverage of the event focused on Chris's autism, regarding the contest win as a worthy accomplishment due to their mental condition. Chris put footage from this newscast onto YouTube long before that they were known to the general public, and it remains the most solid evidence that they are not an elaborate troll. This incident is often cited as the beginning of Chris's tendency to use their autism as leverage for special treatment, as well as their fascination with toys and video games at the expense of more mature pursuits. It has also led Chris to constantly enter contests in hopes of winning big, or else becoming infuriated and violent to the winners when they lose. Chris spent much of their time in high school playing video games at home, reading Goosebumps novels, and hanging out with their gal pals and friend at school. It was during this time that they first put their creative talents, quote-unquote, to use, with the inventions of Bionic the Hedgehog and Sonichu. The latter of which was created for a class project simply because they couldn't use copyrighted characters. Now, the irony is that Chris's own solution to that problem was to merge 2 copyrighted characters into a new character, which is considered Frankendolling, and that is somehow still lost on them, even to this day. And after inventing their magnum opus with the character of Sonichu, Chris began to incorporate their OC, or original character, into everything that they could. Although their passion for their character wouldn't truly surface until college. Chris claims to have been on honor roll and during this time acquired the true source of their powers, the Amnifest ring as they call it. Because the art award that they wanted was given to someone else, Chris became despondent and stormed out crying during their high school graduation. They honestly thought that they deserved the award more than anybody else because they worked on it so hard, in spite of their autism, ignoring the likelihood that the artistic achievements of their peers were just simply better. Another reason for their sorrow was their fear that they might soon have to grow up and start acting like an adult, a phase of their life that their parents had not properly prepared them for. Evidently, this fear was unfounded. Since leaving high school and the happiest years of their life, Chris has been unwilling and unable to progress in any other aspect of their life, and has unfortunately even regressed in several key areas as they got older. They remain trapped in a childish, year 2000 time stasis, as they believed that whatever they were doing at the time was what helped them attract female companions. That their high school gal pals have moved on and married real adult men with careers as of little consequence to them. Chris still pines for better days in spite of their current belief system, hypothetically leaving them in a better place than they ever were in high school. As you might imagine, this is precisely because things didn't get much better for Chris after finishing school. Chris's entry into Piedmont, Virginia Community College probably eased their inability to cope with life after high school. They took courses in computer-aided drafting and design, and began spending more time on Sonichu, launching a newsletter and circulating it on the PVCC campus. Over time, they began losing touch with their gal pals from high school, and they presumably found the junior college crowd less willing to humor them and their personal idiosyncrasies. By their own admission, their social life at PVCC was lacking when compared to their high school years. Chris says that they decided that they needed a sweetheart in February 2003, possibly driven by their discovery that their old friend Sarah Hammer had begun dating Waisaselli. Chris started their love quest in earnest that summer. However, they quickly found that every girl that they talked to had a boyfriend, or so they claimed. Chris soon became neurotic about the infinitely high boyfriend factor and began concocting and employing various bizarre methods to attract women without actually having to approach or speak to them. Chris's most celebrated technique involved sitting in one place, or pacing back and forth for hours, holding a sign that read, "I am 18 years old, single male, seeking an 18-year-old, single female companion." Amazingly, this strategy accomplished nothing beyond getting in trouble with various authority figures who believed that they were loitering and or soliciting sex, which was legally true. Chris was particularly affected by a series of confrontations with the PVCC Dean, Mary Lee Walsh, over their attraction techniques, resulting in an ongoing, completely one-sided blood feud involving magic curses and slander. After a series of confrontations featuring increasingly bizarre and threatening behavior on Chris's part, Walsh expelled them for 1 year in 2004. They eventually returned, however, obtaining an associate's degree in May 2006. After college and completing their education, Chris dropped out of society, devoting their life to finding a boyfriend-free girl, drawing Sonichu, debating in mass portions, and using their welfare money to buy video games and toys, and yes, those kinds of toys. They would not make any serious attempts to seek out a career from graduation onward, in spite of attaining a degree that could possibly net them a decent paying and relatively undemanding career that would likely grant them more opportunities than sitting at home playing video games ever could. In 2005, Chris met Megan Schroeder at a local game and card shop. Megan proved unusual in that she was willing to talk to Chris for more than 5 minutes. The two quickly became close friends, although Megan claimed to have recently endured a bad breakup and refused to entertain Chris's obvious romantic interest. Chris, seemingly basing their stance on studying women in porn and anime, believed that the key to turning Megan's platonic feelings romantic was to make inappropriate advances towards her until she had to tell them to stop touching her, a habit that got so bad that Megan later equated it to sexual harassment. In the summer of 2007, Chris put it all on the line by entering the Parappa the Rapper contest so that they could win prizes and a trip for two to Seattle, which formed the centerpiece of their plan to finally score with Megan. The contest ended in disaster for Chris, as they lost to the dreaded Adam Stackhouse, and subsequently learned that Megan wouldn't have gone with them on the trip, even if they had won. It was during the love quest that Chris was inspired to launch Sonichu, a comic book series featuring their electric hedgehog Pokemon. Apparently, the comic was intended to focus on the life and times of Chris's unbelievably original character, but by halfway through the first issue, the focus of the story had become Chris and their myriad of romantic misadventures. Little would Chris know, however, that their life was about to permanently change as a result writing and drawing of their magnum opus. Chris's rare talent, and by talent I mean pathology, was discovered when someone posted an anonymous picture of Sonichu on 4chan. It only took a quick Google search of Chris's name to discover the picture's author. They were also discovered on October 26, 2007 by the website Something Awful, when a user derailed an unrelated conversation and wrote their personal account of Chris. A thread on Chris and Sonichu was created the next day. Chris's miserable existence spilled over onto Encyclopedia Dramatica in November 2007. Their life hasn't been the same since then, and shockingly enough, Chris himself shoulders some of the pain for why that is. Upon learning of the Chris Chan article on ED, Chris released a single YouTube video attempting to diplomatically convince the site to remove the page. Failing in this, they then spent the next several months vandalizing the article in the vain hope of overwhelming their enemies. This catastrophically backfired, as Chris, in an attempt to prove himself as lurid as the trolls, revealed a great deal of embarrassing information, most notably a portrait of themselves sexually assaulting Megan, that ruined their most important relationship at the time, given the trolls' justification to continue their war against Chris in the process. By the spring of 2008, Chris would be banned from both his favorite hangouts, temporarily, but he was banned permanently in August 2008, as well as their parents' church, for reasons at least partially related to information brought to light by the ED article. In August 2008, Chris declared war upon Encyclopedia Dramatica in a series of videos, threatening to withhold publication of the upcoming Sonichu number 7, unless their vast fanbase rallied to force ED to remove the Chris Chan article. When ED suffered outages unrelated to this crusade, Chris took credit and declared victory, guaranteeing that they would be under constant fire from trolls for years to come. This began an endless cycle in which Chris would produce videos, comics, and harebrained schemes to attack the trolls, which would in turn encourage more and more trolls to provoke them for their hilarious responses. The cycle was briefly disrupted in the fall of 2008 when Chris sent their various medallions to their fake internet girlfriend, who immediately destroyed them and broke up with them. This emotional heartbreak and the release of Little Big Planet reduced Chris's output of videos and other sources of laughs. At the same time, Encyclopedia Dramatica began cracking down on trolls using Chris's page as a forum for discussing them, and in general, opinion was divided as to whether it was funny or obnoxious, and or tiring to continue harassing them. The resulting schism led to the creation of numerous websites and or videos, such as this one that you are currently watching, which has only expanded the coverage of Chris's hijinks. By late 2008, trolls controlled many aspects of Chris's life by posing as dedicated fans, sweethearts, cartoonish enemies, and prospective business partners. Chris's ego and naivety readily embraced this brave new world in which every woman wanted to them. Every man was either trying to help them sell Sonichu products or steal the franchise for their own nefarious goals, and that any and all trolls were a vocal minority on their way to fame and fortune. Trolls would begin denoting major events in Chris's life as sagas, such as the Miyamoto Saga, the Julie Saga, the Ivy Saga, the Liquid Saga, and the Asperchu Saga. All the while, the editors and administrators working at ED and the CWC key maintained a constant record of these events, ensuring that Chris could not get away with their highly selective and revisionary treatment of their history. Following their disastrous failure to woo a real girl on March 2010, Chris began to realize what anyone else would have figured out a long-ass time ago, that their internet presence and the toxic cycle of exposing something about themselves, getting exploited, or otherwise made fun of by trolls, and then reacting poorly to said trolling, was having a detrimental effect upon their mental health and social life. With every new video that they created exasperating about the problem, this realization appears to have led them to reduce their online presence and to stop donning Sonichu medallions and clown shirts. For a time, it looked as if Chris was learning from their experiences and was making an effort to improve their own lot in life. But we all know that's not gonna happen. In November 2010, around the same time another romantic saga involving another woman ended in failure, Chris announced that they will no longer socialize online or publish videos of themselves. Subsequently, all videos save for the last one were removed from their YouTube channel. It initially appeared that Chris was making a positive lifestyle change, but alas, it was quickly discovered that their internet activity had not completely ceased since they announced retirement from social media. Instead of investing their time into more productive activities or improving on their social skills, Chris spent much more time playing video games, and otherwise doing what they had been doing when they did engage with trolls. In a predictable fashion, they ultimately forgot anything that they might have learned from their experiences of being one of the internet's biggest punching bags, and they subsequently returned to making new videos starting on August 2011, albeit with a pretty big change in how they presented themselves online. Perhaps the most dramatic change in Chris's life was their open and enthusiastic embrace of cross-dressing and trying to be feminine in general. In 2011, Chris was revealed to have become a full-blown transvestite and fully embraced their new identity, both at home and in public. Chris seemed to have reconciled this behavior with their extreme homophobia, transphobia, and purported heterosexuality without any difficulty. Though treated as yet another saga at first, this behavior seems to be deeply entrenched and became more extreme in late 2014, as well as the years that followed. As mentioned previously, Chris would slowly but surely walk back into their anti-LGBT stances. In September 2011, Chris's father died of heart failure. They continue to live with their widowed mother, who along with the tugbone is their only source of income. Since their mother is in her 70s, it can be reasonably assumed that she has little time left on this earth, especially when her poor health is taken into account. After Bob's death, Chris generally ceased interacting with trolls, seemingly no longer able to effortlessly bounce back from despair like they used to. Instead, Chris lapsed into a deep depression, no doubt exasperated by the later loss of their home to fire and subsequent financial difficulties. In the aftermath of the family tragedy, many trolls began to question whether Chris deserved or indeed could cope with any further trolling, given that they were no longer the bellicose, striped-shirted, egocentric man-child that the world had come to know and love. For many, it became apparent that Chris's glory days of screaming into a camera like a madman and performing like a circus animal for trolls offering China were over, and several moved on. The golden age of Chris Chan was over. Nonetheless, the surviving Chandlers still managed to be drama magnets in their own neighborhood. In October 2011, Chris and Barb were arrested at the game place and charged on several accounts, including trespassing, assault, and failure to stop in an accident causing over $1,000 in damage after an altercation with Michael Snyder. Chris had presumed that the store's new management meant that Snyder may no longer work there, thus giving Chris a chance to potentially revisit their old haunt. The trespassing and assault charges against Chris were dropped, but both still face felony trials for the failure to stop, and Barb for assaulting a police officer. In April 2012, Chris declared that they finally lost their virginity. However, this was later confirmed to be true at the hands of a prostitute. Chris reneged on the true love part of their love quest and skipped straight to the point after believing that they were potentially facing prison time. 2012 was otherwise uneventful, probably because Chris was in trouble with the law. And in 2013, we saw Chris's life more or less confined to ranting on Facebook and Twitter, as well as making themselves a pariah to people in real life through their actions. They began blaming people to their face for their own shortcomings, which resulted in them leaving their church, as well as getting chewed out by a voice actress from one of their favorite shows, and upsetting the few friends that they have left with their homophobia, and getting thrown out of a Walmart for committing blatant vandalism. They have also complained about the quote-unquote stress taking its toll on their health, and pinned incessantly about being lonely. Even the gal pals Chris so fondly talked about in their high school days would end up betraying them. They found out around Halloween 2013 that they had only tolerated them out of pity, and having discovered them, were just as revolted by their antics as much as the next sane person. Of course, the miseries Chris was lamenting at this time were almost entirely products of their own behavior coming back to haunt them, something that they clearly did not realize. The year 2013 also saw the rise of quite a few new White Knights as well, including actual friends that they met in real life, all of whom tried to offer constructive advice to Chris, although their advice was unwelcome information and thus totally ignored as tradition dictates. This year of Chris's life seemed to have been most characterized by their flagrant disrespect of people, things and ideas around them, resulting in their exile and loneliness, which they idiotically, but predictably, did not connect with their appalling behavior. At first, it seemed that 2014 would just be business as usual. That is, until January 10th, when an extension cord leading from the bathroom to a coffee maker in the hallway, which was placed in such a location due to the nature of Barb's compulsive hoarding habits, and had become frayed due to the constant closing of the door. It sparked and set the house on fire. While no human was seriously harmed, one of the Chandler cats died in the fire, and the resulting damages forced Chris and their mother to temporarily move out and trash a different house. Some of the Chandler possessions were destroyed in the fire, including most of Bob's huge record collection. Since then, Chris and their mother have been having acute financial difficulties, and Chris has spent most of the year alternating between begging and taking the odd commission to make more of their horrendous quote-unquote art on Facebook, or in a new display of narcissism, selling autographed photos of themselves on eBay. You can't make this up. Ugh. Nonetheless, this hasn't stopped Chris from blowing literally thousands of dollars on children's toys. And naturally, their quote-unquote art and photographs are only really of any value to fans who eagerly purchase their items. Chris began identifying as a lesbian in August 2014 and denied that there is no such thing as a male lesbian. While they seem to soften their stance on gay men very reluctantly, they also indicated that they hated their own duck, in addition to their pre-existing hatred of pickles in general. Chris also took up swanning around attending LGBTQ events around Charlottesville, including attending a Halloween party at a gay bar dressed as a lesbian from the 70s. At such events, they obviously mingled with people infinitely more accepting and kind than themselves. In July, Chris was catfished by Catherine, who met up with them in Ruckersville, and secretly recorded their conversations. And in early December 2014, Chris informed those closest to them to start referring to them with female pronouns, indicating their desire to go from transvestite to transgender. This era started with a bang, when in December, Chris violated a ban and assaulted an employee in an outing to GameStop on Boxing Day.
Don't call anybody.
They assaulted the store's assistant manager, who was calling security, with mace, showing that, once again, Chris has yet to learn anything from their mistakes, if they even regard them as mistakes to begin with. On top of this, Chris subsequently caused another ruckus at Walmart, and they ultimately spent a night in the slammer, following a lengthy legal process, getting off with a $541 fine and a 6-month suspended sentence. More generally, 2015 saw Chris slowly shy away from the traditional bigotry towards men and homosexuals, while still keeping up their ludicrous crusade against Sega over the color scheme of a certain cartoon hedgehog, and dramatizing their experience with trolls, and finally develop enough self-awareness to try and know themselves. They indicated in several Facebook posts that they were still trying to gauge their own sexuality and sexual identity, For some time, they yo-yoed between wanting to remain a transvestite and wanting to actually transition into womanhood. In addition, Barb was sued by 2 banks due to failure to pay over $20,000 of debt, kicking off the financial crisis, in which she and Chris both begged for money like jackasses, while their hoards of things that they could sell were clearly visible behind them. The business saga was suspended when Chris was banned from Etsy for failing to send orders. They continued to duck responsibility for their inability to put down the PS4 controller long enough to slap together their preschool level arts and crafts, choosing to blame Lulu for being the bugger that bit their ass bad and killed their creative groove, as if they even had any creativity. Now here's something that's pretty disturbing. Their Odipal complex veered into disturbing new levels when they freely announced that they dream about having intercourse with their mother. And funny enough, that leads up to the current events that has happened recently, but we will get into that momentarily. In 2017, the financial crisis continued to stress the Chandlers. Chris offered pieces of their late father's stamp collection, the Sonic Totem, and the Classic for sale in order to afford more toys, a $400 gold necklace for Barb, and the extremely costly expenses for the raffle prizes. Them and Chris also continued begging. One of their friends from the Endgame's Pokemon Club grew concerned and gave them solid advice on how to apply for work through Virginia's DARS program. And in true Chris fashion, instead of following it, they went on an angry tirade. Later in the year, they were sued for failure to pay a debt to Mariner Finance. Chris rediscovered Twitter in March. Their frequent tweets to voice actresses led to the Doopy saga, in which they were chaticized for calling her darling, but doubled down on it and was subsequently blocked by her, and getting blocked by My Little Pony voice actress Tabitha St. Germain, due to her getting constantly tagged by Chris and the wings orbiting them. They also created sock puppet accounts, like Nightstar2891, to plead their case, and Tweetsparlicious to ban evade, which failed. They briefly joined the Kiwi Farms forum under the name Legendary Christorian and held a Q&A session. A high point for their social life was attending BronyCon, at which they enjoyed attention from fans. They also attended LGBTQ events, such as the Yuva Remembers Pulse, where they were interviewed on TV at one point. Civil Pride, where they were photographed by news and crowd shots, and Love is Love. Chris resumed the business saga halfway through the year by going back to work on the Sonichu issue 11 comic that they had abandoned in 2015 by placing pages behind Patreon. They also again offered books for sale, self-published by Lulu, and they were paid to be interviewed by Mary Weathery and Coppercab, and they joined Redbubble. After 8 years, they finally completed number 11 and moved on to number 12, which they completed after a few months. They began work on Sonichu 12 to 9 and Sonichu number 15, but they got distracted. Their Patreon efforts also began to languish around October, when Patreons complained that they hadn't been sending out books. And so, another sweetheart saga took place in the fall. Jessica Quinn, a longtime white knight, suddenly turned troll by pretending that she had fallen in love with them. She broke up with them twice. The first time, they cried on camera for her to take them back, and the final time, they raged on video against the trolls that they thought were to blame. But they recovered quickly after drowning their sorrows at an ice cream shop. And after having their heart shattered once again, another troll, the Idea Guy, began to influence Chris by role-playing as their imaginary friends, and convincing them that they were providing information from CWCville's dimension, which Chris accepted out of having their fantasy world validated. Along the way, another Idea Guy joined with the first. Together, they used their influence over Chris's beliefs to brainwash them into believing several things about themselves, such as the idea that they were bisexual and half Sonichu, which ultimately culminated in Chris developing a messiah complex derived from their own delusions about the nature of reality and the lore of hyperdimension Neptunia. But when it was learned that the idea guys were extorting Chris, who was already facing financial difficulties, Joshua Noel Moon and the guard dogs intervened, exposing the idea guys for what they were to Chris. From there, the guard dogs were able to force them out from Chris's life over the course of the subsequent months, allowing Chris to unlearn some of the worst behaviors that they had been tricked into practicing. Charges were laid against the idea guys, but unfortunately they never got very far. The guard dogs attempted to protect Chris from further bad actors by screening their messages. However, the Teen Truth Squad managed to evade them by meeting Chris in person. The guard dogs alleged them to have roleplayed as Chris's imaginary friend, Magi-chan, and Chris is retreated more into their fantasy world while under their enabling influence, although they stopped contacting Chris once they saw what happened to the idea guys. Chris repeatedly denounced the idea guys for financially exploiting them, but the damage was done to their psyche. Chris bought into the fantasy that they were a goddess as a new coping mechanism, and their already shaky grasp on reality has hit rock bottom. Chris's new beliefs led them to seek a hippie makeover, befitting of their supposed psychic prowess, and they retreated further into their fantasies, generally refusing to engage with people who wouldn't entertain them. Chris eventually turned on Noel, thanks to the influence of other trolls, chief among them, Jacob Sockness, who sought to sexually exploit Chris. The guard dogs realized that there was nothing more that they could have done for Chris, who refused to listen, and disbanded, but a new group, known as the Watchmen, who enabled some of Chris's fantasies out of pragmatism, sought to keep Chris from further embarrassing or endangering themselves, successfully getting them away from Sockness. Throughout all of this, Chris's belief in the dimensional merge has not wavered. When it didn't arrive on the prophesized date of November 18, 2018, Chris did what all doomsday cultists and religious fundamentalists did whenever the apocalypse didn't happen: push it back again and again. Not helping matters was the event of COVID-19, which Chris saw as a sign of the dimensional merge's progress, alongside all the other insane crap that happened in the year 2020. For Chris, things really took a turn for the worse when BronyCon got cancelled, and they began an elaborate coping scheme to live-action roleplay as Sonichu until they could attend My Little Pony conventions again, which will not happen until at least this year at the earliest, but we're not really sure about that. Chris spent nearly 11 months pretending to be their original character, with very few interruptions, before eventually reverting to be themselves again on February 25th, 2021, thanks to the intervention of an enabler to personally oppose news about the My Little Pony G5 reboot. During this time, you could see that Chris's appearance has visibly aged a lot, with their hair turning gray, and they also seemingly lost a bit of weight, but not due to improving their diet and leading a less sedentary lifestyle, but due to a decline in muscular mass. This is likely a result of the effects of the hormones that they have applied to treat their gender dysphoria, alongside their declining physical health due to their various poor life decisions. In addition to their existing health problems, they've also taken up drinking to excess, and even smoking weed on occasion, which both do their so-called overpowered goddess body absolutely no frickin' favors. And if you compare Megan Schroeder to them, who is basically 4 years younger than they were and currently looks pretty close to how she did in photographs with Chris about 13 years ago, Chris now looks like they could pass for her aunt or uncle. Chris also continued to be influenced by enablers such as Larry Vaughn, Kawaii Sandbag, and Praetor, the last of which is a group which seeks to exploit their infamy for sales revenue. and the Watchmen, a white knight group which sought to protect Chris from such influences, broke apart following internal conflicts among its members. By 2021, Chris had largely reduced their online activities to posting long Twitter threads of Fox philosophic ramblings, reflecting their New Age retro hippie mindset, which bordered on being incomprehensible. They also reconciled with Noel, who eventually helped organize a trip for Chris so that they could attend Everfree Northwest, a My Little Pony convention, on the condition that Chris would complete commission work in exchange for their donations. Noel believed that this was a worthy effort in order to see if they could sustain themselves as an adult through self-employment, particularly ahead of Barb's death, and Chris succeeded. All seemed relatively normal for Chris as far as the post-Ideas Guy's status quo goes. However, what happened next has changed everything. On July 29th, 2021, an audio recording of a conversation between Chris and the troll Isabella Loretta Janke has surfaced online, featuring a very graphic discussion where Chris has described sexual habits with their own mother, which is a felony. While trolls joked about Chris potentially committing incest before, few actually believed that they were capable of acting on those impulses and taking advantage of an elderly and possibly senile woman. Once these details got out, nothing was the same for Chris. They and Barb were separated as they were given a protective order. They had to vacate their only home, and they very quickly got banned from the convention that they had hoped to attend. And their Patreon account, one of their few real sources of income, was also taken down. Noel quickly washed his hands of Chris for good, not only after learning that the audio leak was true, but when he realized that Chris effectively stole money from Barb to fund their stay at a hotel. Chris was arrested on August 1st, 2021, an event which was live-streamed by multiple orbiters. As of August 14th, 2021, Chris is in police custody after being arrested by the Henrico County Sheriff's Department at a Regency Inn in Richmond, Virginia. After nearly a decade of a slow downward spiral in nearly all aspects of their life following Bob's death, Chris's future does not look particularly bright, does it? The Chandler family debt has been steadily rising, largely due to Barb and their child's poor spending habits. And even when she finally does die, the situation will arguably get worse for Chris, with nobody to ground them in reality. Chris is virtually unemployable in any career after years of having every detail about their past leaked out to the internet, and they haven't even made a real effort to get a job since their attempt to win Casey's heart after their short-lived stints working at fast food joints or retail. After Chris's 2021 arrest, it is very likely that Barb will be placed into assisted living, which in turn will end their residence at 14th Branchland Court. By the time Chris gets out of jail, the house itself will likely be foreclosed upon and potentially condemned in order to resolve the financial crisis and to pay for Barb's nursing expenses, leaving Chris without a home. Their options from there are either to try to seek out another family member to live off of, virtually impossible, more so after what happened to Barb of course, or to get into assisted living, which is also impossible, and even Noah's offered to help with this at one point until they severed their ties with Chris. Or to be voluntarily or forcefully committed into a mental hospital paid for with their tugboat money, maybe extend their prison sentence under charges related to some violent crime that they have committed long ago, or maybe enter a homeless saga and live out on the streets, some of which are better than others, but none of which are ideal for them. This is also to say nothing of their mental or physical health, both of which that we know will continue to decay and show no sign of stopping anytime soon. In any case, Chris's story is one that seems fated to not have a happy ending, with their life perhaps serving as a cautionary tale in the age of the internet. However, what if I told you that Chris is not the only one at fault here? In fact, there is actually another monster at work. Remember when I mentioned a name, Isabella Loretta Janke? That's right, she has a lot of dirt onto her as well. Let's get into her, shall we? So, to begin with this disaster, according to the Kiwi Farms thread on Janke, she is known to be a serial liar and manipulator, with a huge list of things that she has claimed about herself in links, as well as claims made by her associates and victims, or incidents that were discovered through investigations. Warning: if you are unable to handle sensitive topics involving harm, as well as dark topics in general, I suggest skipping this part of the video. Otherwise, we will be going over most of what is on this list of the actions that were committed and stated. You have been warned. So, about 100 items were listed onto this thread, ranging from her potentially encouraging, grooming, or enabling Chris Chan's incestuous fantasies with their mother over the course of months, leading to the multiple of the likely demented 80 to 89-year-old. She did this for internet clout and fame, wanting to go down in history as the greatest troll ever known, or the greatest ever. She also encouraged their delusions by communicating with fictional characters that Chris Chan believed to be real, and tried to have them join a cult. There was also that recorded evidence of Chris Chan admitting to mother regularly and did not reveal it, potentially allowing the abuse to continue. I will be playing that recording, but I will warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing and not for the general audience to listen to. Proceed with caution.
Incest fanfics have come true and shit.
I didn't even know there was such a thing. I didn't even know there was incest fanfics. Were there about you and Barbara? I can't believe that. I didn't even think that. I knew that you guys had a good relationship, but I always thought, because I'm not huge on Christery and, you know, whatever, I just thought that the whole Sonichu franchise was very interesting, and that's how I got into you when I was younger, right? But I didn't have any idea that Barbara was, that Barbara and you had that sort of relationship. I never got any of those vibes. But how did you approach her?
I approached her with care and caution.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a time approach. So I just gave her comfort and talked with her, and we just branched out slow and steady, and then I encouraged her positively, let her make the first move. She wanted to do it.
She did? Really? She made the first move?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow, Barbara. How did she do it, if you don't mind me asking? What was the first move?
I don't remember exactly. Well, that was her first move, but my approach was... I forgot exactly what terminology and approach I used, but I approached with care and caution.
That's good.
And I was direct and upfront with her for the most part.
That's good. And how did she respond when you approached her? What did she say?
I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was I think she was partially confused at one point, but then she came around, obviously, with more approaching than I was doing with her along the way.
Right. So she got into it. How was the first kiss? You kissed her? How did that feel? Having known this woman for your whole life, how did that feel?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was simple lip to lip kiss contact, but yeah, it was actually good and it felt right.
When did you start having feelings for Barbara?
Obviously, for a long time. I mean, I remember even mentioning some time ago in one of the videos that I even had dreams where I had sex with her, obviously.
Really?
So,
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's right. The Oedipus complex.
Oh, Oedipus, that's right, yeah. Yeah, that's right. How, if you don't mind me asking, I know that's probably personal, you have to answer, but how is the sex?
I'd say it was satisfactory. It took a while. It took a few tries to...
It took a few tries, yeah. She is older.
And plus, also, she's very understanding about the whole thing as well. I was direct with her, still direct and honest with her. I made sure that obviously, I'm never gonna propose marriage to her at all because we're already daughter and mom.
Yeah, mother and daughter. You know, they say there's no stronger bond than a mother and her daughter. Sorry?
We've been doing it every third night, and the first night being on June 27th.
Oh, you have a routine. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, at least you have a stable relationship, because you know it's not going to end. Like, if anything happened, you'd still be mother and daughter. It's not going to like be explosive breakup, right? At least that's comforting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said since June. Right.
It took us a few nights to figure out what felt right and what didn't feel right. And
does your mother enjoy it?
Yeah, she's having a good time. By the way.
She is. She's having a good time.
Especially what we figured out.
That's good to hear. Do you guys act more like mother and daughter, or do you guys act more like, lovers? When, like, say you come home from, the supermarket and you see Barbara, do you say, "Hey, sweetheart," or do you say, "Hi, Mom"?
Yeah, I haven't called her Mom in quite some time now.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I'm more of a calling her love at this point.
But you recently started dating Fiona, isn't that's true, right? In an open relationship?
Yeah, it's between Barbara and I, it is an open relationship, and I made that very clear with her.
Right. Is Barbara dating anybody else?
Not.
No? But she's fine with you dating other people, right?
Yeah, she's okay.
Do you guys go on any dates or anything romantic like that?
Well, not anything extravagant, but we do, as often as possible, eat at the dinner table together.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do much lately because I've had to switch to a soup diet because after getting the crown, my tooth.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
right.
And plus, we still trying to remember her inner child.
Right. That's true, yeah.
Well, but I'm encouraging her towards the positives, and
right.
Be like a homemade with
her. Knowing you, Christine, I think that because I understand that she's mature, and she's mature and she's wise. She's wise in her ways. She has experience and she loves you, and you two have a great relationship. But wouldn't you want somebody who's younger, right, and to keep up more with your energy? Yeah. A lot of time with your mom, like whatever you have left with her, that makes sense because you don't know how long she has left, so you just you just don't want her to be lonely or anything, right?
Yeah, obviously, but I still would want somebody who was younger or close to my age. Obviously, I don't know, maybe.
You don't want anyone who's younger?
Not too many others at this time, but I mean, obviously, with my affirmations, I'm attracting my twin flame, and we proceed towards it more slowly.
Sorry, I'm putting the volume for I have a really bad ear because I got sick, like you can hear from my voice. It's hard to hear anything at all, but I could hear you now. Go ahead.
Alright, so anyway, with the events and everything, and I was feeling like I really needed a sensual release. And not too many individuals this side of the arc were coming up to the plate right there. So, and then everything was coming into good alignment, and it was good. The signs were all there. Even Emmanuel, God, just said it was okay, and it got me towards it.
God said this is okay? Yeah, then you don't have anything to worry about if God himself said this is fine.
Yeah. And so I gave it lots of thought to myself. I was like, okay, so I'll take a time for it, so...
But how did this happen? How did this come about?
Well, among which just mainly I was really, really horny, and I needed the true and honest relationship to come about, so obviously this was one of the best ways to do it, despite it being with I don't want to believe
I apologize that you've had to listen to that. That was probably one of the most disgusting, vile, and disturbing fucking things I've ever listened to. My question is why would they even do that to their mom? Let alone with them being way older and having dementia, taking advantage of them. It's crazy to me. It really is. It doesn't make any sense, but you can't make sense out of nonsense is what I say. Anyways, I apologize once again that I had to show that, but I needed evidence to back up my claims. Let us continue, shall we? According to other threads, Chris Chan was not the only one who was recorded without consent. It has been said that she has done this to a lot of others. With this evidence in mind, Janke has shared manipulated versions of this in order to minimize her apparent involvement in the alleged crimes perpetrated by Chris Chan against their mother. It is also apparent that they also manipulated evidence to make the crimes perpetrated by Chris Chan seem even more sinister and despicable, as well as her preemptively seeking anonymity in her involvement in Chris Chan's life. For this long list, I will let my good friend Freaky read down this insane pile of dirt that Janke has, and I will warn you now, once again, what you are about to hear is nothing more than pure evil and highly degenerate. Proceed with caution, once again.
Here's just a small look into who Isabella Loretta Janke is. She is confirmed by an independent witness to have boiled alive and eaten a hamster. She co-conspired with another individual to have repeatedly and secretly dosed a friend with estrogen. Another co-conspirator came forward with a statement about Janke's plan to dose a second of her harassment victims with estrogen. The urine that Janke rolled around in was allegedly that of a cat. She has commissioned artists online to draw for her. Janke has admitted to selling nootropics, also known as smart drugs, on the internet. She has a distaste for authorities who may punish her for her illegal acts. Janke has allegedly sexually assaulted several female friends under the guise of helping them, usually by offering massages or helping with the removal of a bra. She supposedly moderated 4chan threads which she used to collect, which she potentially resold to others. She claims to have written computer viruses which she used to infect and shut down others' devices. Janke also proudly claims to have another student at Texas Tech University. She has solicited associates to buy her alcohol while being a minor. She has admitted to spying on others. Janke has plagiarized articles written by others and posted them as her own work on a website. She has also used the website Chegg to share her homework and get others to do it for her. Janke has supposedly bragged about using the dark web and Onion websites and has proven that she uses Tor browser. She has allegedly tried to tase several students at Texas Tech University. There are several allegations that Janke has advocated for genocide on neonazis on Reddit and 4chan message boards. She has also supposedly bragged about attempting to lace other students' drinks with illegal substances. She is confirmed to have bragged about rolling around in someone else's urine on the floor of a shower. Janke proudly claims to be a Karen by being excessively rude towards service staff and retail workers. She has encouraged and informed others about the use of menstrual fluids in the use of pagan rituals and placing spells on people. She was recently arrested for possession of some sort of weapon by the Port Authority Police Department in New York City, USA. As well as targeting LGBTQIA+ students on the Texas Tech University campus, she has made an extensive list of known members with many disturbing implications of what exactly the list is for. She has intentionally outed transitioning transgender students to others. She is a known vandal who has defaced dormitory bathrooms and others' property. She has made the dormitory area unlivable for other students and guests as a result of the sounds and oppressive odor emanating from her dorm and spreading into the hallway. She is claimed to have mild autism, most likely as a way to excuse her actions and gain forgiveness from a victim of her harassment. She has previously denied being autistic, and mild autism does not exist in any form as a formal diagnosis, nor has it ever. Janke has also stated that she contacted Texas Tech University to blame everything on her victim who reported her and her associates. This led to the Title IX proceedings previously mentioned. To put it bluntly, she is submitting false reports to the authorities. She has historically and continues to spread misinformation about her parents' wealth and profession in order to benefit herself and strengthen her narratives against victims. She has potentially attempted to create a Reddit post denying everything as well as playing the victim. She deleted the post shortly after due to an overwhelmingly negative response. She also seems to have created Reddit alt accounts to continue her campaign of misinformation. Her and her associates in their Discord server are actively sharing and creating personas which are animated anthropomorphic versions of themselves, as well as associated. Isabel claims to be a hacker, gaining access to private and financial accounts of others, as well as their devices. She has sold her psychiatrist-prescribed medication to others, presumably Texas Tech University students. She actively does drugs and/or smokes weed. She has used others' vaccination cards to forge vaccination cards for herself and for her family. She has also used others' legal driving licenses to create fake IDs for herself and potentially for others. In fact, she was going to use one of the fake IDs for government filing, possibly to trade crypto, possibly to avoid taxes from transactions. She actively uses devices made by her father's cybersecurity company to assist in her online trolling campaigns, which have negatively impacted numerous people. She has bragged several times about her familial connections to. She also allegedly stole her roommate's personal items and planted cameras around her living quarters. She presumably did this in order to record her roommates. She was allegedly evicted from her apartment complex for this. She planned to steal panties from several women and encouraged others to do the same. It is heavily inferred that she is an incel, meaning involuntarily celibate, and claims to get angry when she sees women interested in men, likely due to her interest in women. She wants to be more masculine, but not in a transgender way. Her desire for masculinity comes from a desire to dominate women. She even took steroids in high school for wrestling, and also has abnormally high testosterone levels. She has quite the history of mocking people for their physical appearance and for their differences. Janke claimed that her mother falsely called the police on her for allegedly harming her mother. She also has a lot of graphic content and imagery such as other fetishes which she creates illegal content of and has historically pushed onto others. There's even a file repository containing multitudes of illegal imagery as well as other depravity. She has allegedly shared videos and pictures of children, including some pictures of herself as a young child, with the intention of launching inappropriate discussions. She alleges that she has, or is worried about being caught with. She avoided getting in trouble at Texas Tech University by making new Discord accounts and reporting her old server where they discussed inappropriate things and posted gore in order to act like they were not involved. She has also claimed to be a sociopath or having antisocial personality disorder with ADHD and is certainly an attention-seeking narcissist with a victim complex. She potentially photoshops images of herself for more attention online. She is also known to be racist, commonly using slurs as well as being extremely homophobic, despite her interest in women. She also hates people with autism as well as being transphobic, allegedly harassing and emotionally abusing transgender individuals and initiating relationships with them in order to embarrass them. She is incredibly spoiled by her parents who send her hundreds of dollars regularly. She has pretended to be other people and otherwise disguise her identity when dealing with people online, multiple times. She has used and created sock puppet accounts on a website and elsewhere in order to spread misinformation, place blame on others, and try to prevent others from finding out the truth. Janke is a bully to those around her, allegedly responsible for perpetrating and organizing the sexual harassment of fellow Texas Tech University students. She has claimed to bully her cousin, who works with children with special needs, evoking negative emotional responses from her family. She actively spreads misinformation and has photoshopped pictures of her victims to ostracize them and potentially lead to their suicide, accusing them of things like recording and perpetrating animal abuse to boot. She spreads information about her government-affiliated parents' drug use, psychological diagnoses, and extramarital love life. She also spreads information about her government-affiliated father's military intervention actions in international affairs. She claims that her father had previously shown her Native American. To begin, there have been falsified claims to more public personalities in order to get them to parrot misinformation for her. She also has manipulated 2 people with autism who are Chris Chan and somebody else named Fiona, and then planned to film them having intercourse at a convention. She may have even potentially planned this just to steal Fiona from Chris Chan because of her own demented interest in Fiona. Her actions have led Fiona to the point of being institutionalized and having her internet privileges revoked after Fiona revealed the incest evidence. She tried to paint Fiona as the mastermind behind this entire plan, which is part of what led to this apparent breakdown. She also tried to convince Fiona to not reveal the shared evidence of Chris Chan's actions by faking a 911 phone call, claiming to have taken care of it already. She then claimed that Fiona was underage just to draw attention away from herself and onto Chris Chan. She also claims to have extorted Chris Chan for money and/or stolen it. She has even admitted to compatriots that she tried and eventually succeeded in raping a woman despite physical resistance by that woman. Janke neglects and abuses pets and has discussed killing animals and using them for sexual gratification. She has also allegedly boiled, burned, microwaved, and possibly eaten multiple hamsters alive on video, as well as sharing this video. She also had one pet named Max who allegedly died due to neglect. She has thrown associates and other innocent bystanders under the bus in order to deflect attention from herself and make them out to be the masterminds of her sick plots. She appears to be the ringleader of a group of trolls under the guise of being a chess club at Texas Tech University. She has threatened to dox those associates just to keep them under her control. She has apparently doxed, or at least conspired to dox, the people who accused her associate of harassment on 4chan, and she proudly claims to have doxed at least 90 people. That is who Isabella Loretta Janke is.
We, unfortunately, are seeing 2 people with some infamy, albeit Chris Chan is more well known than Janke, and the recent pop-ups of information spreaded on the internet about that cult ringleader. Chris Chan, from how I see it, is a sad and unfortunate soul that has had a disturbing childhood, as well as a mindset that over time became something so ferociously negative that has created an internet monster, and they are definitely not returning from whence they came. They have dug themselves a hole so goddamn deep that they will never crawl out of it, and it's a train wreck after train wreck after train wreck. The worst part of it all is I haven't even mentioned half the crazy shit that Chris has done, but hopefully this summary was good enough to keep you updated onto Chris's personal livelihood, if you could even call it that. However, as for Janke, she comes off as nothing more than an internet slime that has manipulated several others, as well as having the influence onto Chris's actions. And with the Kiwi Farms thread, as well as other threads or evidence shown, it's safe to assume that she's dangerous, with the experiences that she has had and even mentioned. Recent information is still coming up and revealing itself onto her, and I'm afraid that we do not have all of the sources of what else she may have planned. But thankfully, the internet spreads like wildfire when it comes to any knowledge of what's happening. In conclusion, Chris Chan's life is nothing more than a disaster that someone like me struggles to look away from. It's a story that is not ended yet, and continues to unravel its ugly head to the world. From recorded videos to audio tapes, this individual will still remain as the internet's most documented, infamous locale. Thank you all for watching. My apologies for my absence, but you and I probably know by now it takes a while to get content like this out on a plate steaming hot. I will continue to bring you folks documentaries and articles from recent online tales. Oh, and thank you all for 500 subscribers. I really do appreciate that. And thank you all for stopping by. Have yourselves a good evening, a good morning, and I hope you all have yourselves a good night.
Ha 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 ha!